Hi, welcome back. So today is going to be a little different. It's not going to necessarily be focused on doing an init um, or musical stuff, for that matter, kind of. This is probably going to be more of a vlog. From time to time, the things that I do in my lab are to help me be able to do the music. And this time, what I'm needing to do is I need to run another sound analysis in the room, because I've noticed lately when I've been working on my trap music mixes that I'm really struggling with bass. And I really thought that I had gotten that tackled by making some changes with the panels in the room and making some small adjustments to the speakers. Well, after I added the standalone setup and I changed the audio cables running directly to the speakers to a better grade of balanced cable, because I was initially, remember, trying to find a ground problem. So I think I may have made some changes that may have or maybe affecting the room acoustics. So I need to figure out how much of a change it is, so that I can readjust the speakers. And what I mean by readjustment, on the back of the Focal speakers, they have pot adjustments for treble, mid, and low end that allow you to make them more flat for the room that you're in. And I need them to be as flat as possible. I don't want to add extra dimension to the sound that I'm hearing, that I'm creating. So I need for the speakers to be flat as possible. And the room has a big effect on the way that you hear stuff. So you can have like the world's best speakers, but if you put it in a crappy room, they're going to sound like crap, and you're going to get crap out of it when you go to mix. So I've also got some issues with my edifiers. I bought a pair of edifier DB, I think they're DB 2000s, and I made the mistake of not setting them flat. So now when I listen to my mixes on them, even though I was trying to simulate the sound of how things sound in my car, the mids are like almost non-existent with them. So I'm having a real trouble with being able to use them as a reference. So I need to make some adjustments to those as well. The only speakers in the room right now that are not giving me problems are the Avatones. I may pull out the dB meter just to make sure that the volume levels are all the same or in the same range between the Avatones, the edifiers, and the Focals. So that when I'm switching between them, the gain settings are not skewed, or there's not like this big blasting sound that you get when you're making switching between them. So I do that a lot when I'm mixing now. I'll sit back a little bit more in the pocket and then flip between the pairs of speakers. And what I'm listening for generally is to make sure the mids are present and that I'm hearing the imaging correctly, because I've been doing a lot of panning as well, and maybe making sure that I'm not doing something that's really weird from a sound perspective, because when you listen to it in a mono environment or in a mono kind of setting, things that are panned too hard kind of get lost in translation. So I try to make sure that my panning is not doing something stupid. And I can definitely hear that really well on the Avatones because they're so crappy. They give you just the right amount of crap so that you can hear what it would sound like in a on a boom box or something like that. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm going to be using 2 pieces of software. I may end up with 1 because it's so hard to set up REW. I've been using REW to do room analysis, and I use that to provide to the acoustician that I was working with GIK Acoustics. But I find that REW is kind of difficult to set up because you have to do a loop back on the your interface, and then do an analysis, and then do an adjustment with the audio interface or with the settings in the software, and then the mic profile that you're using has to be in there and it has to be correct. So I may skip REW just for time's sake because I don't want to have to screw around with that, and just use system or reference 4. Reference 4 I found is a lot easier to use. It just requires a lot of moving the microphone around because it takes a sound shot of the position for where you're placing the mic, and it builds like this profile of what the room actually is sounding like based upon the profile that it builds from you moving the mic around. So that may be where I start today and just do that first. That way I can kind of see, start to see where I am from a sound perspective, and then based upon those values, I'll make the small adjustments to the focals. And I bet you it's the low end that's different because again, I'm hearing it's a lot more boomy than normal. I actually had to originally adjust the bass for these like down 1 dB, and I can't believe I'm having to do this again because this room is just so small. When you're in a 10 by 13 room, bass is just it's just ugly. And I've done all kinds of changes in here to try to make it palatable for my ears, and it's like nothing I do really helps, but making the adjustments to the speakers so that at least my listening position is palatable. That's been my goal, so that I can at least mix in here. Unfortunately, we all have situations like this where we're just kind of stuck with a space. So this is how I've dealt with my space. So let me get started, and here we go. Okay, so I am ready. I had to do a little bit of preparation. I had to borrow my mic cable from my vocal booth setup and hook it up to the provided microphone that SonarWorks includes in the reference 4 package. So it's just a regular style microphone that you see for this kind of application. And I have to hook it up to my audio interface, and it has to be phantom powered. And I have a mic stand that is at kind of listening position, so that it more mimics where my ears would be. And there's some software preparation that's required for it too. It takes you through like a series of questions. I'll just roll back here so you can see. So it asks you to make sure that the phantom power is turned on, make sure that the microphone input is not routed directly into your speakers because it's going to send a test tone, and it doesn't need to have the mic interference while that's happening. A single audio interface is used for the mic input and output of speakers. Audio interface sample rate is set to 44.1, and I did that already. And it asks you for the serial number of the mic because every mic has its own profile. This is the frequency curve of this particular mic, and I select what audio interface input that I'm using for this particular software, and then the output to the monitors, what monitors I'm using. You click on the monitor test.
Please adjust the volume of your output device. My voice should sound at normal conversation volume. Left speaker. Right speaker.
So that tells me that I've set that up correctly. And the other thing I'm going to do is I normally mix with the door closed, so I'm going to close the door. Okay. And okay, so adjust the microphone input gain is what it's saying. Determine the distance between the speakers. So let's adjust the microphone gain so that we can make sure we detect the microphone correctly during measurement. So that's this step. So during the measurement process, so I'm gonna have to take the mic off of the stand, and I'm gonna have to point it at the mic, at the speakers, so that it can adjust, make its adjustments for gain settings. And take that off of there, and I'm gonna have to move the stand temporarily so that I can get around here. And I'm gonna move the chair too so I can move around a little bit better. Okay, all right, so this step, let me get ready for it. So it's gonna do like a little chirp sound. Okay, right side, and slowly getting there. Okay, now that I am done with the measurement part of that, we're moving on to the next step, which is, wow, I didn't realize my speakers were that far apart. So 7 inches and 7.3 inches, which is quite a bit. That makes me want to review my Focal manual, and I'm gonna take a bit of time to do that, to make sure that I'm still in the right pocket with these. Okay, so I always check the manual when I make changes like this, just to make sure that I'm not doing something stupid. Okay, so the thing that I was concerned about is imaging with the distance, because I remember seeing something in the manual, and this is what it's talking about. So the speakers, of course, have to be an equilateral triangle for listening area, but the beryllium inverted dome tweeters that are used in this product have low directivity. So when you're 5 feet away, they recommend that you widen the stereo image by increasing the distance between the two monitors. So with them being at 7.3, that's pretty wide. And I hadn't noticed a stereo imaging issue. And I now remember that I did make some changes to the positioning of the monitors. My desk is a custom desk. I was trying to give myself just a little bit more room to kind of move around in here. And what I did was, my desk, I raised one of the legs on the back of the desk so that I could actually sit it on top of the speaker stand, which in turn gave me about an inch or two more distance to push back out from where the desk would normally sit. So that is the change that has affected my ability to be able to hear. So I knew I was hearing something wrong, and that one little stupid change, I hadn't even thought about it, and I didn't think about it at the time when I did it. That one stupid change has made a big difference in here. So now I got to adjust for it. So that means I'm gonna have to pull this desk out, and I'm gonna have to readjust those legs back there. And I actually need to change that anyway, because see how wobbly things are? I need to adjust the other pair of legs that I have on the desk to compensate for the wobble that I'm experiencing. So I need to figure out what side of the desk is having the problem with the wobble, and then adjust that. So see, there's always something going on in my room, and it's me making the changes. So let me first get back to the measuring portion, and then the next steps for me would be to there's two things that need to happen. I'm going to have to do a readjustment as well. So I'm going to have to probably move the monitors inward a little bit more to improve my stereo imaging. So that means I'm going to have to kind of swivel around the stand a little bit, or not even necessarily the stand, just the speaker. The stands are kind of where they are, like, you know, there's nothing I can do about how they're in there, but I could probably push them back just probably an inch more if I'm thinking correctly. And that'll give me just a touch more room. From a room perspective of again, from being able in this room, it's so small, having more room to be able to navigate is always a good thing for me. So I can do that, but then the speakers themselves, I'm gonna have to adjust them inward just a touch, so that I'm not losing my stereo imaging. So now, that's why I always refer back to the manual when I'm trying to resolve something. It's not always the equipment, it's the person that's using the equipment. Okay, that was kind of grueling. It takes you through like a 20-something point test, moving the mic into different positions so that I can measure the room and how it has effect on the sound. So now that, let's see what the results are. And yeah, actually my top end is oof, it's not looking good. Yeah, something has definitely changed. Making those changing the speakers positioning has had an effect. So it looks like my top end is down a little bit, and the low end takes a big old dip in the 100 hertz range, and then on the sub end it's all the way down in the negative 12 dB section. So wow, let me see, 100 hertz. So I could probably make a little bit more of an adjustment on the back of the focals to try to adjust for some of this. The top end is what's really surprising me. It actually takes another little dip right in the 100 hertz right before it, kilohertz range. So I have two adjustments, and that's kind of like almost a mid-range. So my mid-range is kind of skewed as well. It's kind of peaking at the 6 dB level. So I could probably adjust that down maybe dB to get it to be a little bit more flat. And I need to adjust the highs, the higher frequency range, up a dB. And if I bring it up a dB, it should be in the flat range. The thing that's concerning me is the low end. No matter how much change I've done in this room, it's still just crazy terrible. If I adjust down another dB, that is gonna put me in the negative 12 range, but it's not gonna.
2 hours later.
Okay. Whew, that's hard work, man. So I tilted the stands just a touch, and I have them kind of cantilevered now. So the speakers are hanging a little bit off of the corner on one side. Definitely still being supported by the stand, so that part I'm not really worried about it moving or anything. This side is still a struggle, the left side. So now the other issue that I have is that back panel that's behind this side is kind of impeding my ability to be able to adjust that edifier speaker. So I may have to do some rethinking on my edifiers, maybe move them again. Originally I had them closer to the monitor because I was worried about reflection off of the back of the monitor with those. But I found when I moved them outward that didn't seem to really matter a lot. And yeah, this monitor being this wide and this big does have like, it's like this big bat wing in the middle of the recording process as well. So I have to accommodate for it. That's why I make sure that I had the speakers far enough apart so that the screen wouldn't be a reflection point for them. That was the other reason why I moved them out so far. But I hadn't really thought about the imaging part of it. So now I'm gonna redo this test again, see if making those adjustments made a difference. I bumped the mids down a dB. I bumped the highs up a dB, up a dB, and I moved the low range into the middle. Okay, so here are the results from the second test. So I don't like the direction that the bass is going in. So setting it back to negative does have an effect on it. It took me a minute to really take a look at this to see what's happening. So it took like another dip into the negative 12 dB, which is bassy, 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 bassy. So I may have to actually go positive a dB or two to try to even it out. And that did change to the mid-range. Instead of it being a positive effect, it was more of a negative effect. So this is the original one here on the left, and this is the new one on the right. So right up in here is where I'm seeing a little bit more of a change. So on the old one, when I had it set to 0, it was a little closer to the 0 line, but now it's dipping down under the 0 line, which is not good. I need it to be more close to the 0 line. So I may set that back to 0. The highs did have an effect, maybe not as much highs. I need to adjust it like half quarter of a turn so that it's not above the line. The one on the left needs the most adjustment, and that is concerning to me, the left speaker. So the left speaker, it looks like I need to jack it up a dB on the more of a dB on the high end. The mid-range, I need to set it back to 0 because even on this side it was a little bit closer to 0 when it was set to 0. So this right here in the middle, that 1 kilohertz spike, that had not changed at all. That's just the room. There's nothing I'm going to be able to do about that unless I add some more panels or something. And this is all the room as well. This is all that's mid sub range. It's all the room. And it's, even though I changed the bass settings, it did not have much of a bearing on the low end, except for making it fatter, about half a dB. So I need to go in the opposite direction to see a little bit more improvement on this side. I don't think I'm gonna get like a flat. It's never gonna be flat, but at least a bit closer to 0, so that I'm getting a more accurate. I'm hearing more accurately the bass that I'm adjusting. So that would help me. So whew, this is a pain in the butt to have to do. I'm gonna see if I can do this without having to move all this stuff. I may try to move the speakers out. It's just this room is really tight trying to get to the speakers the way that they're set up. So let me do a number 3 with the adjustments and do another adjustment curve, and let's see what happens.
2 hours later.
This was like the day from hell. I don't recommend it. When you have a really small room, moving things around is a pain in the butt. So I ended up moving them inward and out of the corners. And that did seem to make a big difference, especially with the one on the left. That 100K sub dip is still happening, but it's better. So what else I did, let me show you the final analysis. I'm not moving this anymore. I'm done. I'm tired. Okay, so this is the most current one, right here on the left. So I raised the highs on the back of the speakers to be like 2 dB for both of them. Actually, it's 3 dB on the left, which is this one that's still dipping, and that's just the room. There's not anything I can do about that to fix it. The one on the right, I increased it by 1 dB plus, and it went from being this right here to being this. I probably should go back and adjust this one again. The one on the right was closer to 0. So I may need to readjust that. But when I played some music through the speakers right after I finished the test, and whoa, my ears are like going, wow, for real? I'm hearing a lot more clarity now, no more muddiness on the high side. And the mid-range is different. So what I did on the mid-range is that's the problem area that I'm having the most issue with. This whole section right here is all mid-range. Low mids, middle mids, and high mid-range. It's all over the 0 line. And on the back of the speakers, the mid-range pot setting went it goes 3 dB each way. So I lowered it. I went negative 3 dB all the way on both speakers, and it's still, because the room is what it is, it reduced it by, it looks like 2 dB, because the previous reading was this. So it actually evened it out more. And it makes a difference, because when I was playing some music that I'm familiar with, I'm hearing stuff that I hadn't heard before in it. And the highs sound a little different to me now. Now the bass, it didn't have much change at all. And what's funny is on the pot settings on the back of the speakers, I have it set to positive dB, which takes it down, or no, it should take this down some, because that's the problem, is that I was trying to reduce it down, and it's positive dB on both speakers, and that had barely any change at all. So the most improvement I've made today by making these adjustments is in the mid-range and the highs. So now I have more clarity, at least from what I'm hearing when I'm mixing. So now what I need to do is listen to some of the mixes that I've done in the past couple of weeks and kind of see where things are. I know that I was having problems with bass, like in a major way. So now things should be better from a mixing perspective. And I've been coming to rely heavily on the Isotope total balance control, because my room is so awful, just to make sure that when I'm mixing, my ears are deceiving me. Total balance control is like a tool where Isotope took an analysis of all of the music, in all of the most popular music, and did an AI kind of analysis against it, and did like a sound profile on that type of music, and it shows you the lows, the mids, the high and the highs of that music, of all the most popular music, and where they fall. And it allows you to be able to kind of weigh your music against what's out there, which is a really cool tool. And I think I've talked about this before, but I'll show you again. So again, I run all of my mastering stuff, or master-based stuff, through Luna. Luna is like my exterior kind of mixer kind of thing. And this tool allows me to be able to kind of monitor my mixes and make sure that things are not too twisted and out of alignment, because I'm having to trust my ears in here. And lately my ears have been failing me because of the things that I'm hearing. So what I've been also using on my master, I recently made some adjustments, is I added an extra EQ. So this is a UAD plugin. It's a Chandler Limited curve bender. This is a very light EQ that allows me to be able to make some very fine precision adjustments for the EQ settings. The things I've been touching have been like presence, which is like the mid-range. That's the stuff that I'm having problems with hearing, or was. I think now that I've made those slight adjustments in the mid-range, I may not need this anymore. So I'm gonna have to listen to my mixes and see where I stand with them. I may not need to adjust the presence anymore, which would be a good thing. Less is good. The other thing that's in my master is just imaging, stereo imaging. I normally don't adjust it too much, but if I'm working on something that doesn't require a lot of stereo, it already has stereo in it, I'll normally adjust this a little bit. And then I've started using the master tape. Master tape introduces noise, a very fine amount of noise, like a very hissy air kind of sound, which is what tape used to sound like back in the day. Sometimes it's okay and sometimes it's not. It depends on what I'm working on that I use it. But I use on a regular basis the Neve summing. The Neve summing adds just something interesting to the top end of the way that everything sounds. Without it, it sounds very dull, very kind of a little muddy almost, is the sound that I perceive in my ears what it sounds like. But when I turn this on, it adds like sparkle. It adds a little punch, depending on what settings you're using. And that it's a very impressive little plugin. I've been thinking about getting the API one. I like the API channel strip. It's very punchy, very loud, very harsh sounding. So I don't know if I would use that on everything. The Neve I found is very soothing. It's very, it's not punchy like that. It's bright, but it's not so much bright. It's kind of smooth, really. It doesn't add like a harshness to the sound. And I'm afraid that because I know what the API channel strip sounds like, that I haven't heard the API console plugin. I may just break down and do the demo first before I decide to actually purchase it, and just kind of see what it sounds like to my ears in this platform. It may actually end up being okay. But yeah, today has been a rough day for me. I'm really exhausted at this point. I've done this analysis like 4 times, and the analysis tool has that sampling where it samples positions of your listening positions, and it's like 37 times it does that. So I've done that 4 times today, 37 times. So I'm pretty tired. I was using mic stand at first, thought it was convenient, but then it became a hassle trying to reposition it and making sure that's stable. So I started doing everything else by hand. So yeah. But I think it was well worth it just to be able to get better mixes in here, because it was really frustrating me. In the past, I hadn't had issues with mixing. I was doing pretty good. I've been taking a lot of time learning mixing. So it just really surprises me that my bass has been really out of control and the kicks have been out of control. So I knew something was happening. I thought it was me, but it was more of what I was hearing from the room with the speakers. So I think this may resolve that for now. I may end up again trying to add maybe one more panel, but I need to talk to the acoustician to determine the best route, since I'm still experiencing this huge sub bass bump on the sub end, that 6 dB bump. I know he recommended the last time I talked to him putting those soffit bass traps in, but God, can I just get away with a single ceiling panel, a bass trap, one of those fat ones? Because man, adding soffit traps, that's just big. It's just big, and it makes the room feel even more small than it already is. So I'm gonna have to ask questions so I can see if I can get answers about that one. And I may end up in the end just buying the damn soffit traps and get over it, just so that I can kind of reduce this a little bit more. If I could reduce it by 2 dB, I would be happy, because again, when you're trying to mix your own sub stuff, you're fighting against this room and what you're hearing, and what may sound okay to you and you take it out somewhere else, it may end up being really bassy and bouncy, which is not good. And then you end up not being able to hear all of the rest of the music because of the bass is overriding everything. So that's why I'm doing this. It's just, I really care about what my music sounds like from a sound perspective, not only from a technical performance perspective. So that's all I've got. I'll catch you guys on the next one.